Will I like it? Will I hate it? Let's find out with Nat at the movies. Hello once again everyone and welcome back. I am your host Natty and this is Nat at the Movies, the series where I take a look at a random film and give my thoughts on it. Today we will be taking a look at a film that came out just a few years ago, rather than the 1960s like my last review. Cars 3. That's right, boogity boogity boogity. Let's go racing, y'all. So this movie is what I like to call Cars 2. We don't like to talk of the other sequel. It picks up as we follow Lightning McQueen racing, but there seems to be a new threat coming for them. Rookies. Not just any rookies either, fast ones. It is here that I have many questions about this film already. Putting myself into the mindset of the world being created here, how do these other racers still have jobs if the rookies are so much faster? Well, I know in NASCAR certain drivers linger longer than others. Chick Hicks is also shown to be on his own show, and it appears to be one that he's had for a while. When did he retire? He was the Piston Cup champion just years prior. Anyhow, he still seems hung up over the events of the first film. Perhaps he mentally snapped? That's what it seems and could explain that. I know that this is a movie and thus we aren't supposed to think so logically about things, but I know in NASCAR rookies don't take over too fast. This movie, however, has them taking over quickly. But then again, we did have a rookie wave in NASCAR recently, and so many of the veterans who were in their prime dropped out far too quickly and got replaced by a whole avalanche of a rookie class. But we aren't supposed to think about that too much, I feel. It is a kids movie after all. We then see him appear, and he won't shut up. I shall ignore his presence through the rest of the film. I notice how much the town looks different too. Very different from this and the video game. I still ship Sergeant Fillmore. Their relationship is lovely. Also, Lizzie, you are ancient by now. We then get introduced to whom I shall call the villain of this movie, Sterling. He gives off major Elon vibes. He is Elon, but quite sexist. The showing of the racing simulator is interesting considering how much actual NASCAR drivers use them in reality. I notice how the movie has this heavy-handed gesture about McQueen's age as well as Sterling being ageist against McQueen, pursuing dollar signs and young unproven talent, or have we heard that before, rather than investing in a driver who isn't even that old but still talented. You may notice by now I am jumping all over the place. Well, the movie is doing that very thing as well. I feel its pace is all over the place. You can't really relax and get used to what is on screen before it moves along faster and faster. It left me confused upon watching. But yes, the movie then moves to a demo derby and it brings in another odd question about how they are cars and must destroy each other to collect license plates. Are these cars thusly dead? This is essentially gladiatory combat in car terms. The ethics of the Cars franchise are a weird one to think of, to be quite honest. 95% chance of winning? Who would even watch anymore then? They say numbers never lie. Enough said. We get some rather nice interactions with some references to old drivers of NASCAR's yesteryear, and also meet some of the tracks NASCAR has left behind. Obviously in references rather than direct, since this is a fantasy world. But I do rather enjoy all of these little references you'd be able to pick up on if you knew your history of the sport. But all in all, we are thrust into the final race and McQueen knows he must retire. But in this race he plans to start, but let Cruz take over after a pit stop. Much like in NASCAR when a driver who starts can still earn points even if substituted. She couldn't be painted that fast realistically, but then again, this is a kids' film, so skip the logic. But yes, she takes over and completes the race. I don't think there is rules in place for a driver to leave a race, then become the crew chief for another driver, but what do I know, this is a fantasy world after all. She keeps racing. And oh, you forgot about Storm? He was the villain, don't you remember? Yeah, the film doesn't really remember him either. They thrust his character back in development by making him flip 180 degrees to be a full-blown cartoonish villain. No idea where that came from, but now he is suddenly a villain. Storm is painted as a sexist as well, and the film portrays him as a sexist, who is a sexist because deep down he feels threatened by the female taking his glory away from him. And that's really about it. The film is pretty much done there. Many plot threads are left about the place, but that is the end. Let us move along now to a conclusion. Conclusion. I will say the film is visually great compared to the previous movies for sure. The introduction of the movie feels a bit too fast-paced. Ironic in a racing movie, I know. I do enjoy how much Pixar seemed to do their research, for there is many references to NASCAR's history here, like the moonshine reference. I see what you did there, Pixar. I also feel that the movie should have focused more on Cruz. It was clearly about her becoming a star of her own merit, but the focus was too much on McQueen. They could have had a McQueen is too old and must retire sort of story, but tweak it so Cruz is the focus, but at the same time we are seeing him slowly becoming more of a mentor as he comes to terms with the need to retire from racing. In that sense, I guess the equivalent would be Jeff Gordon handing the reins to Chase. The first act was far too fast. The second act is sort of two parts. There is tons of little references and jokes hidden throughout the film. It feels slightly more mature than Cars 2 was. Well, far more mature. This film and NASCAR do share some strong similarities in how conservative they truly are at their core. They may have done tiny gestures of progressive ideas here and there, but at their core they know who they are marketing towards, at least at the present time. Cars 1 and 3 show off that conservatism on their sleeves. I could go further into detail about that and many other points I noticed about this franchise, but perhaps that will come in a later video. This movie had so many ideas, I feel, and it wanted to cover them all, but it had a limited runtime to meet, so they crammed it all in. It feels like too many slapped together ideas rather than a solid story. It wanted to do so much so fast, and its pacing paid for it. The movie has too much on its plate and too little on its plate at the same time. I also must say McQueen is slightly more redeemable in this film compared to the others. He was quite the brat in the second film in my opinion, but we don't talk about that film. In terms of McQueen, however, his saga feels pretty much wrapped up, as confusingly as it had been done at points. Even as his saga ends, another begins. Oh no, Disney, what are you doing? Not again. I do rather like Cruz by the end, though she was mildly annoying at first, but I feel that was just some youthful immaturity. She is still miles better than He Who Must Not Be Named. So, what are my thoughts on the film overall? Well, this film gets my natty seal of confusion. In all ways, it is better than Cars 2, but I just am not so sure if the film is great on its own. In some ways, it improves on its predecessors. I loved its world it built, but at the same time, it felt all over the place and it had leaps of logic and sudden turns in it that its narrative leaves me not entirely certain about the film. Give it a watch if you so desire, but my thoughts are mixed. It also must be said that this film reads more as a film about NASCAR than it does the Cars world. Switch some names in the Cars to the real world, and you got a pretty clear NASCAR film here. It, much like Talladega Nights, paints a pretty accurate painting of how NASCAR itself is contemporarily. NASCAR is experiencing some growing pains after its quick and sudden rise to popularity, and now it has begun losing some of its fan base. NASCAR is met with the choice it needs to make. It needs to choose to either move on from the past and progress as a sport, or stay stuck in the past where it will retreat from the spotlight as the world moves on without it. Much like a marathon runner, getting frustrated is making no progress as he stands in place as the rest of the runners move by. NASCAR is currently trying to balance both, but it simply is not working. NASCAR must make its choice, and soon. The world doesn't wait forever. I have been your host, Natty, and I hope you all had a wonderful day at the movies with me. Take care and farewell.